Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us and helps the bands and artists like the Bright Light Social Hour here and Jack. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. It is so exciting to be here with Mr. Jack from the Bright Light Social Hour, all the way from Austin, Texas. And if you've listened to any of my podcast episodes in the past, you know how much I love the city of Austin, Texas. And this man has been there for how long now?
Oh man, since I was seven, so
A long time.
not mathing right now, but it's been a minute. Yeah,
So, so let's just talk about this. You came off the road about what, a week ago, week and a half ago?
yeah, just over
Yep.
yeah, a week and a half ago exactly.
So how was the first part of the Endless Light tour, and how was it different compared to any other tour?
It was incredible. Definitely hands down best tour since the pandemic and top, all time for us for sure. Uh, like from just a kind of business ticket sales standpoint, it was finally the first time we're kind of back up to our pre-pandemic, um, sort of activity, which is really exciting. But just interpersonally, it was awesome. We had the five of us are, it's just my favorite lineup the band's ever had, and we're thick as thieves. And we also have this great, my uh, film production partner, cinematographer, was on the road with us, as well as a dear old friend was running merch. So we just had like this incredible group, and yeah, just like some really great wild shows that are all time for the books, unforgettable ones. Fantastic. We came home very excited for what's next and ready to get back out there again.
Yeah, we got to see you at Johnny Brenda's in Philadelphia. Just an electric show. I mean, I told you personally, I was like, it really felt like a celebration of your music that night.
That stuck with me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, just how you curated the set list, just the crowd's response, that venue. It just was just a perfect mix that night. Talk about that night in particular.
Ah, man, highlight of the tour. The last time that we played Philadelphia was about a year ago on tour with this band from there, Mo Lauda and the Humble, and that tour ended at Union Transfer in Philly, and was just like incredible. And they didn't have to, but they came out to the show, the whole band, and brought a ton of friends, and we're just like, and Jeff, their bass player, his side project opened the show, Air is Human. And so I don't know. I think it was just like this great, like all of us to see each other for the first time in a year was really exciting. And it was just, you know, it wasn't the biggest crowd of the tour, but it was like the fieriest. People brought it. We're just dancing. We're just like giving back a million times what we were putting out, which just made it go off easily. It was just one of those unforgettable hot nights.
So, with Emergency Leisure now being out for about 2 years now, how did playing these songs on this tour, this first leg, compare to playing them last tour?
It's interesting. It's like you put out an album, you tour on that album, but I feel like always on the tour immediately after the release, you've got some people who are in there and checking the new stuff, but it's like it takes, I get it, it takes time for people to process, to kind of take it in, to sit with it for a while and go away from it, come back to it. So it's like now that, yeah, year and a half, 2 years have passed on that, I feel like those songs now feel like part of the canon, and they are starting to get the reaction that we get with our older stuff, where people are singing along and they're not like, oh, here comes a new one. Like it's like a just the feeling of that you're not the new kid anymore. So the songs just feel cozy. We've also like just improved, trying different things and just picking which ones from the newer album work best live and tweaking them and continuing to improve them so they feel, we feel more laid back in it. We can stretch out, get a little more free with them now than compared to when we were first touring on those songs.
And where you guys are situated on stage, how long has it been since you've been in the center?
Um, Man, I guess that's been since day one because when we first started the band, there was a different bass player. I was just singing. So I was in the middle and then, we kind of switched it up where I took on the bass and we brought a keyboardist in and that just kind of always felt natural. So that's been day one.
Yeah. It works because you are, between you and Curtis, you are the more energetic. So, it kind of seems like he is okay with being the wingman in that respect. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say he's the quiet leader, I'm the loud leader, But yeah, he's Leonardo. If we're talking Ninja Turtles, he's Leonardo. I'm more Michelangelo vibe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Talk about like your friendship, your relationship with him, and what he means to the band.
I mean, he's the heartbeat. He's definitely, the just a brilliant mind continues to just blow me away. 20 years ago, we met in college. He just sent out a email looking for people to play. We were at a tiny Methodist private university in a small town north of Austin, and I was just blown away that somebody was looking for this type of music that I thought I was the only person on campus that was listening to. It was like he from Sigur Rós to Dillinger Escape Plan, Blood Brothers to Death Cab for Cutie, stuff like that. That was big at the time. That was, really soft, sensitive stuff and really hardcore. Like, and I was like, what? I have to meet this person. And so it was just, I think immediately like this incredible connection and like we always just had, he's had like just the technical know-how, the real like incredible music theory knowledge, just a musical genius, absolutely. And my sense of kind of music and performance is a little more intuitive. But I remember that our first show that we did together, we both at the end of it were like, "Holy crap! Like you're a awesome performer! Like you're an awesome performer!" It was like, "All right, this is gonna be fun for a long time." And I didn't think it would go nearly this long, but yeah. So I think that friendship has just been at the center of everything for a long time, and we've just usually seen eye to eye on things, and have great communication when something, we're stuck on something that's, it's usually like, you know, hey man, I don't love your background vocal on this song. Like maybe let's redo it or try something else with it. It's like he's always, the kind of stuff that's like a lot of musicians are very sensitive about. It's like we have, it's been so long. It's like no problem to just throw those things out there. We like just trust each other enough to try the suggestions of the other and yeah, so Um, just always been easy like that.
Well, I mean, you said you're a five-piece now. You've gone through some changes over the years. I mean, obviously that's natural being in a band this long. With Juan Alfredo being the latest member, how did he kind of bring and change that dynamic?
Um, that's funny because we had in our studio for a long time we just had a couple of congas set up and we said we're gonna put this in a position and we're gonna manifest an awesome human to come here and just like play this. And Kurt was really into, he'd take a break from guitar and go over and jam on it. And we in those moments we'd be like, oh, this is so cool. I wish we could have the lead guitar going along with these like percussion parts. And he knew from the last lineup change of just before we were with our keyboardist Shredward, he played synthesizers and guitar, and we were four piece and a drummer. So when he left, we brought Mia in on keys and vocals, but we said like we want to do this differently. Like how can we just grow this, take this as an opportunity to do something different? And we just always felt like so I think it all comes down to something Curtis and I have always talked to since the beginning is there's like rock and roll. People forget about the roll. Like the rock is, you know, that's you hit hard, you loud, and you get a good, thing. But it's like to get it to really have swagger and like a depth, like a go into the fifth dimension with the groove. We were like, let's see what we can do to make that deeper. So Alfredo, just being like a from Monterrey, Mexico, having played in a bunch of like cumbia bands and focusing on like Latin kind of psychedelia, it was just like this instant exciting thing. And the first song that we worked on, we just invited him to come as we were jamming on um, Madonna's La Isla Bonita, and putting him on that instantly was like, okay, we can do a million things with this. Like, I don't ever want to do a song without that.
So yeah, and that's a good segue. What was the inspiration for choosing that Madonna song as a cover?
So during the pandemic, my family and I, we stayed in Merida, Mexico, and Progreso, Mexico, in the um,
Yucatan.
Yucatan area,
Yeah.
and it was so weird. We were there for a couple months one winter. I guess it was 2021, and I swear, like at least a couple of times a day, you'd hear that song from a taxi window or in a restaurant or whatever, and it was just it was just like this is so weird. This very particular song from the 80s, and it was just following me like to the point that it was like I can't ignore this. It was stuck in my head every single day. I'd wake up with it in my head, and that went on for weeks. So I had a little portable recording rig down there, and I'd started to sort of say like, okay, but that song's cool, but what if it had like this kind of like a little bit deeper sort of disco take on with mix a little reggaeton sort of groove, and we ended up adding some slide guitar. So I made this really crude, rough demo and brought it back. And shortly after that is when we brought Mia on, and we I think that was yeah we were starting to put that together. Brought Alfredo in, and that was just instant like, all right, this is the perfect like first recording project for us to try out this new lineup and let everybody stretch out a little bit and
Yeah.
explore. And yeah, it was really I was just haunted. I don't feel like I had a choice in the matter. I was like, guys, we have to do this. We have to release this. We have to record it. And yeah, and it just felt serendipitous the way that because it was cool. Zach and I, the drummer, were invited to be a part of this sort of one-time Austin supergroup doing a whole set of LCD sound system covers.
Nice.
And so we get there for the first rehearsal, and Alfredo walks in with his really interesting setup, which is, a mix of uh, congas with like electronic pad and cowbell. So it was a cool, intertwined electronic and acoustic percussion setup. And so before, as he was setting up, before he played a note, Zach and I are looking at each other like, dude, this guy seems really cool. Right away, we hit it off. Like personally, as soon as we all started jamming, it was like, okay, the three of us, this is a great rhythm section. Like, and it was perfect, because we ended up learning all those songs together. So we kind of musically bonded over this whole set that we had to learn in a short period of time. So we got that trust established pretty quick.
Were there any other songs of that, catalog that you would like to do maybe in the future that you
Yeah,
guys
you
did?
know what? We ended up we never did uh I'm blanking on the Dance Yourself Clean. We ended up having to cut that one for some reason before we ever really got into it. And all of us felt like, man, that was a big bummer to never have gone to do that one. So I've always still wanted to do that one. Get Innocuous we did do, and that was one that I just like, man, we should record that. It was felt great.
Yeah, LCD Sound System live is just, it's an experience. It really is.
I saw them once like I don't know, ACL maybe 2010 or something before the first breakup, and it was incredible. But I've heard their recent shows have been awesome as well.
Yeah. So talk about that. I have never been to Austin City Limits Festival before. For someone who's never been to that festival, how is it different than other like major festivals?
It's like frankly, as years go on, I think they all homogenize a bit. They all become a little more, influencer VIP experience sort of geared, which I understand the increasing costs. They gotta, and I read that ACL this year, I think, brought in $500 million to the Austin economy between all the people they employ and everything
Mhm.
that they pay to the city, and a lot of the ticket price goes into the Austin Parks and Recreation, and so it's a huge part of our local economy. But I would say it's got a funky feel. That's Austin. It's a great reflection of Austin, which has remnants still of this very weird, does its own thing, doesn't care that it's in the middle of this conservative island of Texas. Um, but still trying to fight that like homogenization and gentrification, and just all this big tech has come in, and so you've got like housing prices going way up, which of course makes it a little bit harder for the artists to hang on and stick around. A lot of them move out to smaller towns or cheaper places, but but there's people still fighting, and great, there's local government efforts and grants and things and services that really help those things continue to be a part of the culture. So I would say it's a great reflection of Austin, where it's like it's being pulled in this direction, but they're doing a really good job fighting it. It's still, they're getting the biggest acts in the world, but they're also featuring, they do make great efforts to feature local bands. And, our experience playing it is, an unforgettable one. And, yeah, we've done it twice actually. And, love the people that run it, and the way that it's, it's a, it's a great mix of the the super high level, mega things, mega acts, and the local stuff, and having it all mixed pretty seamlessly. It's my favorite of the major festivals, I'd say.
I wonder, like, what, like, statistic wise, like, how many, like, what percentage of people that are from Austin that actually attend the festival, though, compared to, like, outside, like, are people traveling to that festival, or is it most?
Definitely. Yeah, I don't, I'm curious at number two. I couldn't say, but I'm sure it's, yeah, a lot of people come from out of town for sure, but
Yeah.
a lot of locals go as well.
Yeah. I think it was a brilliant idea for the NFL to bring the Raiders or whatever, a franchise to Las Vegas because like if you're a guy who likes football, as long as your team is playing that team, you're going to go there. So like they created a demand as
That's
much for their
brilliant.
away team as it is for the home team. It's crazy. But yeah,
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, like the market, like Austin City Limits. Originally, the name was from the TV show,
sure.
which has been around since I think it got Stevie Ray Vaughan was on there. It's been around a long time, and so then they're like, there's no better branding than this name, so they licensed the name for the festival. And I think from the get-go they kind of knew like, all right, we're gonna lean into this is like a reflection of Austin and our culture and our music and what Austin is known for. It makes it special.
Yeah. Well, the other big festival that they're known for is South by Southwest, which you guys have been as part of, as much of a part of as obviously ACL. Talk about what South by means to you and what that means to the city and how it's kind of changed over the years.
Yeah, South by, it's chaotic, it's insane. I read something that like 10,000 bands, more or less 10,000 musical acts come to Austin every year, something like that. And only a fraction of those are official artists, but every library or cafe or coffee, anything that could possibly have live music has live music day and night. It's just a circus. So there's some difficulties that come. Like you live here, it's insane. There's no, you can't go out to eat. You can't. Everything's just flooded with people. It's wild traffic all day, every day. So and you can't, you can't park anywhere. You can't load it. It's like somehow you've got to get your gear from this place to this place. Sometimes you've got two, three shows in the same day, and you're like, booking it down 10 blocks, carry your amps and whatever it is you got to do. So every year it feels like a marathon, and we're like, that was fun, but we're never doing this again. And every year, this last year we almost got away with it on,
Almost,
it
yeah.
was like, it's a little over a week long usually. So the Thursday as it was about to end, we're like, all right, cool, we made it. We're not doing anything. And that Thursday we get an offer to play Saturday, the last day of the festival. and we're like, all right, well, we can't turn this down. And it was playing with the plain white tees, just a really, some cool friends that we know putting it on. So got sucked in again. But yeah, I have a lot of love for it. It's like I feel like as we get older, it's like oh, and but it doesn't really pay artists. It's so you kind of realize like what you're going into. It's just like an experience for getting connected with people and getting connected with fans.
Yeah, you're going there for the connections. You're not going there to get rich.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what you're doing it for. So, yeah.
So yeah,
Mhm. Sorry, do you mind if I pause
yeah, of
for
course.
just
I'll
one
pause
second
you.
here?
You're good, of
So
course.
sorry. I'll be
Yeah,
right
yeah.
back.
So tell me about like what your favorite music venues, and I know some of them have closed over the years. Threadgill's I think is probably my favorite that closed, but venues that are still open, what are your favorite to go as a musician as well as, or, to play as a musician as well as to go as a fan?
Honestly, I think it's hard to beat Mohawk. That's my favorite place to go. I know all the staff there. It's just like a really intimate indoor stage that fits like I think, 150 people, very small, and then a great outdoor stage where I'm seeing King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, the OCs, like so many incredible acts. They've just, yeah. I love Empire Control Room is great. I really miss the old emos. They're still in emos, but it's like a whole different venue in a new location. The original was kind of where I saw my first shows as a teenager growing up in Austin and played some of our, it was like when we finally played, it was like, holy crap, we're doing emos. So I missed that one a lot. Um, but yeah, there's Radio East is a new great venue that we've done once that I really love, would love to do again. But Mohawk's been around for a long time, so that's that's a tough one to beat.
Yeah, I've heard you're not the first person that told me that Radio East is cool. I've not made it to that venue either. That's kind of what, like southeast Austin, like toward the airport,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It's like next to, a huge office park. There's nothing but at least it's easy to park, but great stage and really great acts they've had.
Yeah, it was interesting because that this year we left Saturday, but our flight wasn't until like 6 o'clock at night. And they were doing some like showcase there with some like brunch thing with like some artists that we would have liked to seen, but most of the stuff didn't start until after 3. So like, by the time we would have gotten there, we'd have gotten to the airport. So we missed out on it. But yeah, we'll have to check that out next year.
Definitely.
Are you familiar with the Peterson brothers?
Yes, yes. They are so fucking sick.
Oh,
They're
my
incredible.
God. So I told you, and I stand by this. I think you and Alex are the two best bass players in Austin.
He's insane. He's absolutely wild.
He is so good.
Yeah, inspiration. Incredible.
And two totally different ways and how both of you play as well as like interpret the bass, in your own unique way. That's what makes like both of you so good, I think. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. For, I would agree. Our styles are super different, but it's like, wow, what you're doing is very it's stepping out and it's trying something different and taking the lead sometimes and sometimes holding things down in a really solid way, but that's still somehow very engaging, um, while not being out of place in flashy or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what
Yeah,
what you
incredible.
do so well is you make the bass sound melodic. And like not just melodic, but also like, like with like a vibe attached to it. And that's very hard to do. Like, like Sting could do that, like,
So good.
you know, there aren't too many other people though that play bass though that can do that that I can
Um,
think of.
James
Um,
Jamerson, Paul McCartney.
yeah,
Yeah,
Paul
there's,
McCartney.
but yeah, no, you're you're always taught like you should be almost felt and not heard or not seen. It's like you're the glue that's holding it all together. So it's almost like a faux pas to really be stepping outside of that. Um, So I do think it has to be done tastefully and it has to be done with some care. And I do often like when we start with songs, I'll kind of go take it too far and then pull it. Okay, then now what's the most minimal version? And then
Yeah.
usually I find something in between that feels like, okay, this serves the music, but leads the ear in a different place than you might have expected it to.
Yeah. So what made you choose the bass in the first place of all the instruments?
Yeah, I've always, since I was a little kid, I don't know what it was. I think the first thing I can really remember is just my dad was very into the Doors when I was a kid, and he would always, and it's funny because, they'd never had a bass player or like a bass player in the band. They'd have studio players or the keyboardist would, do it with his Rhodes bass, but he was always pointing out the different instruments, but especially the bass, be like, that's a great bass line. And I remember I got the Red Hot Chili Peppers One Hot Minute album from '95, which is like they've like disowned the album. It's kind of critically panned, but I got my hands on it as a little kid and it just blew me away and all these, Flea, the effects and the just how funky and aggressive. And that album is like so much more dynamic emotionally and musically. It gets so much. It's the only one where Anthony Kiedis is like screaming, and
Yeah.
you've got Dave Navarro from James Addiction in there. Like, John Frusciante is incredible, but it's just so weird. And
Yeah.
so that for me, like, I would just like listen to that and stare at the stereo for hours. And I had this hilarious journey where I kind of realized like, okay, this is the bass. I don't know what a bass is, what it looks like, but I know I want to learn to play it. So I was in like fifth grade, and this orchestra teacher came to visit our classroom, trying to get people to sign up for the orchestra. And they said they had the violin, the viola, cello, or bass. And I was like, "What bass?" Okay, I signed up to play the bass, and the teacher was so excited because nobody wanted to play the bass. And so I go with my dad to Straight Music in Austin to rent a bass, and they pull up this gigantic thing that's like twice as big as me. And my dad saw it, and he was like, "Oh, no way!" Like, yeah, grab a violin instead. And my heart like crushed in that moment. Like, no, they put the bass back, and he's like, you can't carry that thing around. What are you gonna do with that thing? Like, how are you gonna even practice it? So I learned the violin instead. Was kind of my first like proper instrument, and I don't know. I have a feeling that's probably a bit why I take a more melodic approach, and the violin strings are the same as the bass strings, and um, yeah. So finally, I learned. Oh, there's this electric bass. I figured out what that was. So then I asked my parents for Christmas. I want an electric bass. Instead, my dad got me a Fender Strat Squire electric guitar, and he was like, "You're gonna be too bored playing the bass. You gotta learn the guitar first." So I was like, "Well, at least this is a cool instrument, but okay, it's not the bass." So I learned that too, and finally, it wasn't until I was like 13, a friend had a bass and just left it at my house for like a year, and I finally I never took lessons on that, but just would play it for hours, and it just spoke to me. It was I felt like I was finally home. I'd been on this journey as trying to navigate my best as a kid to get there and finally had. So never looked back.
Well, I think it's like in your case, and I think also with like superstars, like you hear about, and I think it's such a downfall now that parents and like these organizations and sports, they want these kids just to focus on one sport, like multi-sport,
Yeah.
like, and the same concept with you, man. Like you started out playing violin, you started playing electric guitar, then you ended up with the bass, like you have to kind of go through some hoops and boundaries before instead of just
Yeah.
sticking to one thing.
I'm glad for my journey. Yeah. No, I remember my dad told me um when he got the electric guitar too, the deal was you have to stay in the orchestra, keep playing the violin until the end of middle school. So I remember saying like, and if you do that, then at that point, we can talk about getting a bass. So that's like 4 years, fifth grade through eighth grade. And the last day of eighth grade, we'd rented the violin enough that we owned it. But I just left it at school the last day. I was like, I don't care. I don't ever want to see this thing again. And years later, my dad was like, "Hey, whatever happened to that violin?" I was like, "Ooh, yeah." I fucking donated it. You donated it to the middle school.
It's at Tommy's house.
Yeah, it's done. We'll never see it again. Don't ask.
His dad's got a bad problem. He's probably gone. It's probably sold.
Yeah.
So, so when like when you were starting out though as a band, obviously you were just clamoring to get any gig, excuse me, any gig around town, like, anything and anywhere. And then you get established and you like go out on your first, like let's say month long or whatever, multi-week tour. Was it weird coming back then to town? Like when you're so used to just clamoring for like venues around like Austin and then you finally hit it big and you're gone for 3 weeks and then you come back and you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
was there that
Um,
like kind of transition or not really for you?
a bit. I mean, our early tours were pretty scrappy and like it was whatever we could get. And,
Yeah.
we'd have the first time we ever left Texas was for the now defunct Miami Music Festival, which was kind of their version of South by Southwest. And so it was like a cool thing that we had there, but there was, we didn't have anything booked in between Austin and Miami. So the gigs that we were taking in like Pascagoula, Mississippi, and wherever, whatever we could get were, it was literally what I remember playing 4 hours in Pascagoula when we had 1 hour of material and, to like 9 people. And, but then you get to Miami and play these huge, shows. And so it always was, you never got too used to anything. It was always felt very schizophrenic. Or, I mean, even still, it's like that where, we'll play an insane show like in Philly, and then, we had a show in Charlotte, and it was just an outdoor thing that it was terrible weather, and then it's just a bummer vibe, and it's outside of anybody's control, and then you just okay, keeps you humble. um but yeah, around that time that we released our first album, 2010, we did, I remember that year, I think we played something like 35 shows in Austin. We were just asked to play every event, every fundraiser, every, you know everything. So um it was it was a weird thing to be like, oh, we're not having to hustle quite so much, but we were always thinking like the next place. So even though, Austin was easy and we were, in high demand, it still took a lot of work to build that everywhere else.
So was there any venue in particular other than emos that really got like took you guys under their wing like to and allowed you guys to play like either residencies or regular gigs?
Yeah, I mean, early days, we had like a every other Saturday gig at this West Six Bar Shakespeare's that was just like, people were just college kids just getting wasted, but it was packed and we'd have to do like 3 hours or something long, and it was great to cut our teeth. And it wasn't like a particularly glamorous show or a great fantastic opportunity, but it was, I wouldn't turn those gigs in for anything, because I think we did that for a year and a half, and it was just to have to fill this time and learn to improvise and learn to be really entertaining without really um having everything mapped out was like a really thing, and just learn to really feel each other out and develop that sort of psychic communication within the band. Um, and then later it was the Parish, which was also at the time on West Six now. Well, actually, I guess it's no longer open, I don't think. It turned into something else, but that was like, oh wow, the big nice venue with a real sound system that, was taking us in, and they had great people there that trusted us and would have us opening for touring acts, or, put a lot of promotion into our shows. And um, so, just really great community of people that believed in us and helped us believe in ourselves, and grow what we were doing, and just give us a good stage to share it on.
How about the radio stations? Any particular radio station that really kind of helped you out?
Yeah, KUTX 98.9, the local kind of NPR affiliate. Just like hands down, I think it's the best radio station in the country or the world. Like it's just so music focused and so artist friendly, and they're always like you listen. It's just my favorite to listen to. You have no idea what's going to come on next. Their live sessions in Studio 1A are incredible. I feel like only KEXP has something that rivals, and um, yeah, just you know, those people are still, the program directors in my neighborhood. He throws parties, a Christmas party every year, so it's like the whole Austin music community comes together, and just a great pillar of the music community. And they've been in the building they're in now for like a decade, and they had us as the first band ever. We played when it was just a foundation with no, we had to wear hard hats and perform in like construction gear, and so we kind of broke it in, and just always dear to our hearts, and they're always excited about what new music we're working on, and they'll, it's like they don't care if other radio stations are playing it or not. They'll play, if they like it, they'll play it.
So that's a good question for you guys because a lot of your songs are not what you would call radio friendly because of just the length. It has nothing to do with the sound or the style of music. Is that kind of uh, predetermined, or is it just kind of organic, or how does that happen with your length of songs and how long they are?
I mean, another reason we love KTX is, we'll do like radio campaigns sometimes when we release new music, a new album for sure. And it can be, you'll notice like, okay, yeah, we're pushing a 5.5 minute single. You'll see like who's picking it up, and like it's the weirder, college stations, or just the left of center. But KUTX always, they don't care. It's a good song. We don't care if it's 6 minutes. Like it doesn't matter. Like, oh, it's got some curse words we got to bleep out. Like no problem. I think when normally those things are non-starters for a lot of stations, and so really appreciate that. And it's WMNF down in Florida. That's kind of a similar in Tampa, and those stations. I just really love that. The ones that really have heads work in there, that just their life passion is to share exciting music. And there's no, and nowadays I think radio, at least non-commercial radio, is not so beholden to some of those standards as strictly as they once were. So we really appreciate them.
Yeah, it's frustrating to hear artists tell me that like the whole payola system in radio like exists and it's like blatant. Like that
Yeah,
just
we don't
it's
even.
so it's so it's so tough to balance the art with the commodity. But like when
Oh
you
yeah,
do that, that makes it even harder. You know what I mean?
yeah, you're right. It's just like, and no joke that it's like, I mean, huge singles from artists that break. You're like, you find out later, like, oh, the marketing budget was $2 million. Like, so they were doing whatever they could, buying off anybody who would accept any money, and or whatever, purchasing whatever. Um, and it's like, well, we can't compete with that, so we've got to get more creative, and we've got to know who our allies are, and who we can trust to like actually listen to the music and actually put it out if they're feeling it. And so I think at this point we know who some of those people are, and it always helps us, because then we can say like, okay, hey, these stations, KCRW, KEXP, WMNF, the current Minneapolis, cool stations like that. And there's a reason those are the only stations that I think are still really relevant and cutting edge and breaking new artists. That you're not going to. I mean, yeah, you might hear the new big pop single on iHeartRadio, but it's not. They're not the ones that are breaking it. You know what I mean? And really sharing it to an audience that it's not already going to get to. So yeah, it's like it's been a part of our industry since we started. So you accept it and you realize like, well, we can still have a career and not really participate in that.
Yeah, it really is. You're right. It's the radio stations like you said and you listed and like these music venues, like that aren't Live Nation run, like they're essential. Like you have to have them because you can't have just, this monopoly of everything. And like thankfully, Austin has enough independent venues that they're kind of like they should be kind of like the stalwart for other cities to kind of look at to like kind of replicate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think the fans know, you know it right away when you walk into a venue and, you know, the door person doesn't give a shit. The bartender is like, is it on the menu? No, I can't make it. Okay, yeah, the cocktail's, $19 and it's, the sound person, it's like the things are quality, but nobody really cares.
Yeah.
It's like that's just it's a bummer. And I think it's the same thing in radio, it's the same thing in venues. I mean, even there are artists that you can tell right away. People are smart. They sniff out something that's being, phoned in pretty
Mhm.
quick.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but you're right. It happens more times than not. So I want to know how you enjoy listening to music. Your setting, how you're listening. Are you in the car? Tell me how
I'm a
that goes.
car guy, car all the way. My 2012 Honda Accord, blast it. Just sometimes, I'll be like, oh man, I've got 3 songs left on this album, but I'm about to pull it home. Let's get back on the highway and make a few rounds. I mean, I love headphones and a good pair of you know, headphones for something I really love. AirPods too now have become great. I love the sound isolation is really awesome. So that's hard but when I'm checking mixes, I'm checking on all of those. But for like a great listening experience, like I'm like, I want to put the album on in my car, go for a good drive, just have it kind of blasting and I'll take that over even the higher like you know, um, the headphones having there's maybe some details that I get in the AirPods that I'm not quite getting in my car stereo, but still I love that. Vinyl record too. It's just vinyl in the living room, sit on the couch, glass of wine, and just play something with the artwork in front of you, reading through the notes and the lyrics. I mean, that's tough to beat. But honestly, these days, being, in this busy world, it's it's hard to do that as much as I'd love to.
Yeah. Speaking of vinyl, I mean, it's a real treat for you guys to have what, three of your albums on vinyl, correct?
I mean, we've released all of our albums on
Yeah.
vinyl, but
Okay.
a couple of them have been out of print for a little bit. So I think
Yeah.
yeah, we might be down to I think 3 of the 5 are currently available on our store.
Yeah, it is great that we're seeing this resurgence in vinyl.
Year after year, I think it's like 20 years running that every year the
Mhm.
sales have been higher than the last year, which is
Yeah.
just I could not have predicted that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the older generation or if it's the new generation or if it's just, who knows, right?
I think it's all the above. I think
Yeah.
young kids are getting really into it. I mean, the ones who remember it from the olden days, it's extremely exciting too to like get back into that. And yeah, I remember thinking it was like probably 2009 or so. I got my first turntable, and I remember thinking like, this is a really fun trend. This is going to be a really cool couple of years where everybody's buying records and every band's making records, and it's probably going to be done soon. So I'm going to enjoy this moment. But you know, 20 or 15 years later, I'm still stoked it's continuing to grow, and there's record store. I love to go to Breakaway Records here in Austin, and you know, it's I'm very about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, give me one more
Yeah, you're
break
good.
here.
So I want to talk about you guys have a bunch of your songs that have been featured on television shows, and Bryan Cranston reached out to you?
Yeah, he was the executive producer of the show Sneaky Pete that was on Amazon Prime with Giovanni Ribisi, and they were looking for a theme, and so we had a music supervisor that we'd work with that they would kind of, connect. So he reached out to this company in Los Angeles saying like, "Hey, here's kind of what we're looking for." And they thought like, "Oh, Bright Light Social Hour would probably be good." They wanted something bespoke for the show, a title theme, and they gave us all these kind of examples, or like I remember them saying like we want it to be like Beck meets White Stripes with a little bit of secret agent kind of vibes, and we're like, okay. So yeah, they asked for a 1 minute demo. I think this is like on a Tuesday. They said, give us a 1 minute demo by Friday. And we've asked a couple of other artists to submit. And so we ended up submitting 6 1 minute demos. And it's funny because the one that they used, the demo was just so like Curtis did a couple where he played all the instruments. I did a couple. We did a couple as a full band. And we just figured like our chances are better if we throw more at him. And they went with one that Kurt made, but he'd done this in like half an hour. He'd played the drums, he'd done the vocals in one take, um, and I remember that demo had this incredible energy about it. And so for like a month, they went back and forth to, they want us to do a full version of the song and flesh it out. And they'd say, okay, try a little faster. Okay, actually, no, a little slower. And then, there was a whole team of producers, and like we'd be getting notes back from different ones of them. And this went back and forth for like a month. This was like every day, like, hey, tomorrow we need like, and we're coming up on our deadline. So here's what we need. Here's your paragraphs of notes, re-record it. So we redid it so many times. And finally, they're like, okay, we got it. What we found out later was that there's, in the room of producers, they were divided. Bryan Cranston and half of them loved our demo, and half of them were like, no, we want to go a different direction, get like a professional film scorer to do something. And finally, um, I think Brian was like, no, we're going with this. He kind of gave the executive call. And they said, okay, we got it. And we're like, okay, great. We got the final version. We're finally there. The show comes out really soon afterwards. Like, I want to say, like, less than 2 weeks later. We all gather around to watch the first episode. Like, here we go. And instead of that final, the 50th version of the song that we'd worked so hard to get to, it's the original MP3 demo that was like low quality that Curtis had done all in one take, had played all instruments himself, sloppily for him. He was mortified. He was like, "Oh my God, I didn't think anybody would ever hear this." And we were all like, "Wait, what the heck? What did we do? What did we just spend all this time doing it for?" And we were upset at first. We were like, "Oh my God, like how?" But quickly we kind of realized, like, no, he's right. There was an energy about that first demo, and sometimes just no matter how many tweaks and how deep you go in, you just can't replicate that energy. So, yeah, that's still there's a on Spotify you can hear what was the final version where we finally got it, the first song. But if you actually watch the show, it's taken from like the original clip that we had submitted. So, um, I just thought that was so cool that Bryan Cranston himself was like, no, there is a magic here, and he recognized that. And even though he couldn't quite get everyone on board, and they wanted all these revisions, and he kind of like let it all happen and said like, nope, we're just I don't care what the band thinks, I don't care what the other producers think, we're going with this first demo. So it was yeah, well, in the end, like a very cool experience, and we're very stoked on it.
But what was the first song, though, that was done for a TV show?
I want to say Ghost Dance, from our Space is Still the Place record was the first one. And then that song, gosh, I can't remember the first. It might have been Teen Wolf or some. I don't remember which was the first show that it went on. I think, but I want to say MTV's Teen Wolf. And once that was placed into that song was placed into that show, then I think a lot of other shows started coming back saying like, "Hey, we want that piece of music." And that particular song ended up being placed in so many shows on HBO and Fox and MTV, and then we'd occasionally get somebody asking for a different one. But I want to say that one song, Ghost Dance, was in a Nintendo Switch commercial, has been in Ubisoft video games, and um, it's been in, I don't know, like 20 something shows, something crazy. But we've had some others, but that one is like weirdly, I think just that wordless na 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 chorus is just like you get to a really high energy moment and very quickly, you kind of can jump right into it. So I think that for whatever reason, it kind of became our one, and still we get shows that'll reach out and ask to use it.
So, without giving too much information, getting a song on a TV show is like selling out X amount of capacity venue.
Um, as far as like how, what do you mean? Like how
Like
like it's
financially.
financially? Oh, let's say selling out. Like, I mean, it depends because they come. We're pretty much like if you got some budget, we'll say if it's something that we like and we like, because those budgets have come down a lot, especially since the pandemic. So it's hard to say. And before the pandemic, yeah, we were, I mean, it would be, 10, 20, 30 grand for a placement. Now it's definitely it's like, I would say more commonly 500 to 5 grand. So, but then, I remember reading that Tame Impala got a song in Cadillac commercial for 300 grand, and they still come up. It's all over the place. It depends on the artist, it depends on the shows. But yeah, unfortunately, the last few years, those budgets we have seen come down quite a lot. And that's kind of all the artists that we know have seen the same thing. So yeah, all are really all over the place. Hard to say. And then and then it depends on the territories. Like, we did this Nintendo Switch commercial, paid a really nice chunk up front, and then it gets picked up so that's the US territory, then it gets picked up worldwide, so then that ends up being like multiplied for the renew, or then they want to use it for a second year, so then you get,
Gotcha.
extra bonuses. So yeah, it's hard to say. I would say we've seen every number, and yeah, it's like you want to ride that line between like, oh yeah, it's like it's a little bit of money for a song that's already written and it's gonna like be put in front of more people. It's hard to say no to, but at the same time, like you don't want to accept anything too low, and then the word gets out that we'll do it for cheap. So finding that line is always a changing target.
Yeah, I can imagine that is a very much of a challenge because once you have a couple songs out there, then it's yeah, like you said, like you don't want to get that what is that word?
Their reputation
Yeah,
or
reputation. Yeah,
yeah, that
exactly.
yeah, like, oh, these guys will do anything. They'll do it for whatever. They'll do it for pennies. Like they don't care. Yeah.
They're music whores.
Yeah, and it's like right, and it's like you have to be on one level. It's like, oh, what, it's
Right.
like in order to not go insane, you have to look at the muse as a musician, I think, and do it professionally. You can't really, if you're doing it purely for the money or the status or whatever, you're gonna drive yourself insane very quickly. So unfortunately, people take advantage of that, and it's like a lot of times, it's like, hey, I've got this gig. I know it should pay, some huge amount, but you'll probably accept this way low ball offer, right? And it's like, I don't want to, but yeah, fuck it. I don't know. I'm lucky that my job is playing music. I'd rather do it than a lot of other things, but
Yeah.
you're paying way under the market rate. So, you try to negotiate and get as best as you can, and then in the end trust that they're doing their best to pay what they can, and at the end we take it or leave it if it's, we find it worth the time. And on top of it, getting older, it's like those it does take more, like the standards get a little bit higher, and and our industry is just continuing to lose its footing financially, I think. And especially with the federal government's like drying up of arts funds and those kind of things, it's not looking fantastic at the moment, but increasing creativity and trying to, find ways to stay positive about it and get creative and make money go further, which unfortunately looks like hiring less people and taking on more jobs. So, we are our own record label. We're our own, you know, marketing team, our own, we design all our own merchandise. We do a lot of our own video work, all that kind of stuff. Like it's all out of necessity that okay, we can't afford to hire these people for everything, so we've got to learn these skills ourselves, and so that's kind of our, main way of combating that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the film company, but we'll chalk that for a second because I want to talk about Kelsey and what she has done for you guys as a band as your manager.
So Kel, so we have a manager, that's his name is Matt. Kelsey,
Oh, I'm sorry.
however, No, yeah, she has become a very important part of our team it's a super cool story. So my brother um, was our manager up until his passing in 2015, and he hired a UT student, Kelsey, as a marketing intern. This is like 2010, around the time we put out our first album. And she's brilliant. She put together this incredible street team, and just like being like such a young, hungry go-getter, she like really blew us away back then. And back then she toured with us doing some merchandise and would just help with marketing, promotion, publicity, all that kind of stuff. And just always really organized and really just felt like a part of the band, really like a dear friend who was on our level, just a hilarious, fun-loving music enthusiast. Um, she moved to Australia, uh, and was just traveling, and ended up staying there for 9 years. So 9 years later she comes back, and me and her meet up for coffee, and it was before this is like around the turn of this last year. We just announced this Most High tour that we're currently in the middle of.
Hmm.
And and I was telling her, like, I'm so overwhelmed with the promotion, the marketing, the like, there's no way there's gonna be any, reaching out to media outlets like this. And it's just, I don't have the capacity to do it all. And the band members ourselves are doing most of the stuff. Um, and she's like, that's really weird you bring that up, because I was thinking about asking for my old job back. I'm still finding my footing, like moving back to the States. And I was like, oh my God, it's yours. So just since the top of this year, she's been working with us again after 9 years away, and she came on this last tour selling merch, and it's great because then in the van we can all kind of crunch together and work on the marketing, the kind of business side of things, and so she's become, yeah, incredible, um, just part of the team. It's great to have her back, and she uh, got this set up, so we're really appreciative.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey.
Mhm. Big
So,
love.
do you guys like ever talk about like having a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, or do you not think that far ahead as a band?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do. I'm the one who's like, I try to have those conversations, and like sometimes it's a little like, what do you mean? Like, keep rocking as hard as we can, like, and go upward and upward. It's like, on one level, sure, that's it. But yeah, I do like to have those kind of things in mind. Like currently, a big focus is trying to break out of North America. We've toured so much in the US, Canada, and Mexico as well. Um, but I think big priorities for us are, well, one, doing Mexico City more, because we've only done it. I think we've really only played it three times if it in total, but over like a decade. So we're not doing what we would like to be doing. It's probably our favorite city to play. You know, just we love the city. We love the people. They're enthusiastic on another level. Like, Americans are great. Canadians are very they're more into the music, but they're more polite. It's like they'll be quiet during the set, and at the end they'll give you the most deep, heartfelt compliment you've ever heard. But Mexicans, man, it's just, it's like pandemonium, just absolute fervor. So that's a priority. And then, and playing in Europe, a dream is to play Primavera Sound Festival, which is based in Barcelona, but also Porto, Paradiso, Amsterdam. There's like certain venues and stuff that um, like Curtis and I did a couple of tours, being part of Israel Nash's backing band in Europe, and just like had such a blast over there. So, yeah, so those are goals and kind of hitting numbers. I think, particular cities too, that, trying to get move into bigger venues, or particular places that we have seen shows, but it's like the next level for us. So yeah, we've got our goals, and it's something that we every once in a while bring up, and it's a little too hard to get everybody to sit down and kind of like articulate it. But once we do, it's always like, okay, great, this is our target, this is what we're doing, and here's the steps we're putting in motion to make it happen.
Yeah. Maybe with the next time you have that conversation, like hand out some microdoses before you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We call that the quarterly review. We try to have one of those every once in a while. A good psychedelic session.
Yeah. Um, so Mexico City, I am fascinated because that is like what, the fourth, third largest city in the world, right?
Yeah.
You never hear about the music scene. You never hear about any music venues. Like, what is the music scene like in Mexico City from your experience?
It's awesome. It's great. Like it is like I think as Americans we're weirdly uh
Ignorant.
yeah, ignorant and isolated from it, like for it being so close. You go there, like the last time I was there, we played this venue called Bajo Circuito, and across the street is this wonderful kind of like it's like a recording studio slash podcast studio slash like music sort of booking and management and media kind of company. It's called La Bestia, the Beast. And and we went in there, did a podcast session, and just like the guy runs it, he is just like the coolest and taking us in. And then he's like, "Okay, hey, I'm really sorry, guys, but now you've got to leave because Fontaine's DC is about to pull up, and like they don't like a lot of people around." And then after, it's like, and then tomorrow I'm interviewing idols, and it's just like, what, like, or like Pavement or something, just cool stuff. So I think there are bands from around the world that are coming, like for them that is like a major major global market that is, they do give a lot of attention. So I feel like a lot of European acts are playing there and they just love rock. It's one of the, I would maybe say maybe the biggest rock city in the world. Like um so it's cool. So then locally too, we got turned on to a lot of great local bands. There's one I'm obsessed with. Unfortunately, it seems like they kind of got together for one album, and I don't think they're that active anymore. It was sort of a super group, but they're called Los Pau Paus, Paos, Los Pau Paus.
Okay.
But their one album that they have is so sick. There's an incredible cover of Iggy Pop's "Wanna Be Your Dog," Quiero
Oh,
Ser Tu
sure.
Perro. It's all in Spanish, but it's like this like I don't know, like tropical psychedelic punk kind of thing. Super cool. Von Dre is a band that we played with down there. That's super good, super sick. Kind of like heavy, mostly female, but really heavy, really badass, incredible guitarists. Um, yeah, it's a good scene. Great music, great rock coming out of Mexico. And like yeah, we love to hear about. And it's great because so Alfredo, the percussionist too, is based in, he's from Monterey. So a lot of Monterey-based bands, like when they come up, he kind of knows them and he'll invite us to the shows. So we're always getting turned on to really cool stuff from Mexico.
So, I mean, being from Austin, which is one of the best food cities in the world, how does the food in Mexico City
Oh,
compare?
dude, I mean, it's no comparison. Mexico City is insane.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Last time we were there, a restaurant called Ex, uh, Expendio de Maíz Sin Nombre, which I think means like corn store with no name. Um, but it's like this chef. He comes in, he asks anybody allergies, and he whatever, like kind of like chats a little bit with your table, and then just like sends out this multi-course. There's no menu. Sends out a multi-course meal. It's mostly corn based, and it's just mind blowing to the point that we went back, twice in the 2 days we were there. So yeah, absolutely mind blowing. And especially now that I think there's a lot of like regional cuisine in Mexico that's like until recently considered kind of lower class or something. That's like like using I'm blanking on the name right now, but like paste from ant eggs or something that was considered like only for the very poor, but now it's like you'll see it in these like micro gastronomy restaurants. And so it's cool. I think like as far as food, like nobody's more Oaxaca City, that's where my mom is from. That's like cutting edge food city. You'll eat things that you just couldn't even dream of and can't even really comprehend. Yeah, can't speak highly enough of that.
Yeah. So, do you guys cook a lot on tour then, or
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're fighting each other to cook. Everybody in it, we've got five great chefs. I consider myself a pretty good cook, but I'm the bottom. So I don't ever get a chance to cook on the road. We'll get Airbnbs especially when we've got a day off, and between Kurt, Zach, and Mia, especially, they'll just like do some insane braised, or just yeah, stews or soups or it's kind of like what's everybody needing, and then they'll do some incredible version of that, and yeah, that
Yeah,
really sustains us.
that's awesome. That's so cool. So let's talk about your film company because we kind of touched on it earlier, but we really didn't dive into it. So I know it obviously started because of just this DIY approach that you guys have, but like, what have you gotten from it since it started? And like, what do you want? Like, how do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, so it's called Hermano Sisters Films, which is brother sisters. Um, and it's started with just making videos for Bright Light Social Hour, and I was directing a lot of these early videos. I found myself working with a lot of the same people, this incredible cinematographer from Mexico, and a lot of them are Mexican expats here in Austin who are just like these. It's an incredible community of Mexican expats, artists, musicians. There's so many photographers and everyone. So, um, it was originally just doing all the bright light videos, um, and then kind of branching out to really, we started having a lot of friends reach out, ask us for help making stuff, and now we've like kind of branched out doing commercials for like apps and um, it down to just tiny projects, reels and things for musicians that are releasing singles and a lot of live stuff too. So I'm really, really into oneers. I feel like weirdly it's like in the ether right now. Like I've been watching the show The Studio, and there's a whole episode that's all in one shot, and it's about oneers, and Seth Rogen continues to fuck up the one and adolescents too, like all shot at these one shot massive orchestrated scenes. So I'm a huge fan of Gaspar Noé, French director. Did Climax is my favorite of his, but he's done Enter the Void and Irreversible and some gnarly, hard to watch movies that are so beautifully shot. The one shot sequences are incredible. So I'm a huge fan of that. So something I'm always trying to do with our live footage is like rather than set up six cameras and you're just chopping between them all, um, trying to get a skilled cinematographer who's part of the band, and is coming up and you know interacting, and you're getting this one take. So we're currently working on a live album. I think a lot of the tour we've so far will kind of make that up, but it will, I think, include some upcoming dates. Our Austin date will also film, and so we hope to have sort of one shot film to go with each song on the album. So that's the current project.
That's awesome. And whose
Mm.
idea was that?
Um, it was Curtis's idea to do the audio version because he's been dialing in. He is sort of the lead on audio production. He's kind of the in-house engineer, really incredible ear, and he's sort of really taking the lead on building our studio here and is kind of the main engineer producer on our records. He, we're recording and just doing a couple of tours, making some improvements, started bringing our own microphones and things like that to get really steady results. And this last tour, I think we really finally nailed that audio part. So then we flew out our cinematographer and had him film all that. So then it was like, okay, well, if we're gonna put this live album out, like, why not get these incredible one shots that we can stitch together into one shot per song, or maybe even like clusters of several songs that are all in a single shot. But so it's cool. You really get this feeling of like, I really want to give rather than like the feeling like, okay, yeah, I'm in the audience at a show. That's cool. That's great. But like, I want to take it a step further. Like, what if you were almost like a ghost who could float around on the stage, get up in the face of each musician, then maybe jump down to the crowd and be like feel that energy of what's going on in the audience. And so that was kind of the approach here is like get this sort of up close and personal take where you're really focused on one piece, one member of the band, or one performer, or one aspect of what's going on, but still getting this great audio of all of it at once.
And what would your vision then of how would you release it then to the public?
Um, Probably do like a vinyl that's just obviously audio only and do it on DSPs, but then we're still figuring out if it's going to be. We're looking at starting a Substack this summer. I think because we ended up just with so many filmed recordings that I think probably what it'll be is sort of like a YouTube like full concert thing where there's like a video that's the entire concert as well as the individual songs chopped up. And then I think there'll be like a ton of extra additional songs, content, full, all other full, like here's just one show. I think we're kind of thinking there's the master version, it'll be the live album version, and then that video that goes with it that's taken, probably each song or a couple of songs from several different performances all put together. But then in addition, we can release just, for example, Pittsburgh, April 17th or whatever it was, 2025. Um, you can just go listen to that show and you can watch the video of that, even though, there might be moments where the camera shuts off for a moment while he changes the battery, but so there'll be like kind of the main one. And then if you want to go deeper, we'll have a whole lot of extra.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating almost like an archive, really.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool because it's like the camera work is also like a part of the improvised set of the band because that's completely different every night, and it's who it happens to be looking at the different moments of the different songs is totally different, and you're in a different setting and it's a different audience, it's a different energy. It's So we kind of realized like, man, we're ending up with a plethora of this stuff. Like, what good is it just sitting in our, maybe it's not perfect, and we're gonna pick the best of the best for this main project, but we want to share the bulk of it for the people who are the deep, the non-casual fans.
Right. So we kind of opened the door to the Escondido sound, but let's walk in and you tell us about this studio, like what the evolution of it, if you will.
Yeah, so I guess it started with the first touring that we did in like 2011 or so. It was kind of this like we had a band house that rehearsed in, and we were recording at studios in town. Um, and we went on tour, and kind of everyone was having trouble keeping their jobs that were normal as we were starting to tour. And it was kind of like, and so my um, stepdad had this cabin on Lake Travis that he'd purchased in the 70s. It was just like a little cabin tucked away. It was all super overgrown, and we kind of would just store our stuff there, and he let us use that as like a rehearsal space for a bit. And eventually we kind of like cleaned the place up and, started paying the rent and utilities at a, great family rate. So we were able to take the money that we were saving going into studios and recording and put that into gear and teach ourselves how to do it. Kurt did a year of engineering classes at Austin Community College, and just is like such a recording enthusiast. He really, helped us like dial in. We get a set of mics, and the studio is built very much for the Bright Light Social Hour. We do record other bands there and stuff, but like we keep a really it's not like a big commercial studio where they've got every microphone imaginable and every, all, walls full of guitars and all kinds of outboard gear for any type of sound, any type of situation. Like we can figure it out for anything you throw at us, but you're gonna get a bright light sound. It's gonna be, you know, pretty like late 70s hi-fi, like end of the analog era, as we're getting into digital, and we're not, super we love that stuff, but we don't use tape machine. Like we've messed with that, and it's just such it's such a expensive pain. Um, so we do this great mix of analog and digital and try to get the best of both while feeling really classic but still incredibly hi-fi. And but we also love like really fucked up lo-fi sounds, and so figuring out how to run a lot of this gear through. Sometimes we will um, like run it through physical outboard gear to get like the specific types of distortion that we want to really give it a warmth. And but yeah, so just very slowly we kind of built this to our own needs, keeping it really streamlined. And we've recorded a ton of acts out there. Ray Wiley Hubbard has come out. Walker Lukens has done a bunch of recordings. Killer Band from Austin, Megafauna. We've done quite a lot of recording for them out there. The Madam Radar is another great Austin band that recorded there recently. I think Kurt's doing a session with Dossie, and a sick Austin sort of pop, like art punk uh act that's super different. And it's always cooler, like you know I don't know, you're gonna get something a little different than maybe what you've gotten in the past,
Yeah.
and the bands that are open to that, it comes out really cool.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's really, really cool. So is that why then it took 5 years in between albums then? Was it because of the studio then mainly?
Yeah, I mean, from our first to our second, the first one we did with Danny Reich at his studio, Good Danny's, and it was a great kind of masterclass for us to learn. And then, yeah, we were sort of saving up for the second record, and that's when we decided, like, well, what if we just take this money and invest it in our own gear? And at that point, we really didn't know too well what we were doing. Um, and so we said, let's record this second album, which ended up being Space is Still the Place, all ourselves. But it was, yeah, this huge, very slow, kind of painful process of guess and check and like, okay, let's record the drum tracks for the album. And then you'd have some huge breakthrough and realize, oh shoot, now like we got to go back and retrack everything because we've, leveled up. And so you'd keep going back and revisiting and improving and trying to learn, like, why can't I get these vocal harmonies to sound the way I want them to, and just experience. So it was endless experimentation. And but that the process of making Space Still the Place, I think, really got us to the point of being confident engineers and being able to self-produce and not feeling that we had to, we do like working with the producer to go outside and change it up, but we also just love the ability to be in our rehearsal space, we're developing a song, and then immediately like, yo, turn the microphones on, let's go, like let's lay down the basic structure of this song and build on top of that, like going very quickly from writing to having, a recording laid down.
So to give the audience a little perspective, so we go 5 years in between albums. It's 2015. You put out this album, you know, your life is good. And then the next 2 years between your brother's passing and between Curtis's heart attack, like, how do you go from that high to then just crashing down? I mean, to the lowest of lows. Like,
Oh yeah.
talk
No,
about
man,
that.
you don't. It was brutal. Yeah, huge height. Our first album did unexpectedly well, and it felt very organic. It just kind of blew up in Austin. I just when I listen back to that album, I frankly think like this, the first self-titled album is like this is what Austin sounded like in 2010. This is like a summer in Austin, going to Barton Springs, just or going to some smoky weed, going to some swimming hole, going skinny dipping, going to this party afterwards. Like that's it was, that was the feel. And then we finally, it took us, we have, lineup shakeups, like we're touring our asses off. It just took us a long time to get then we decided not to work with the producer and do this album ourselves. It's super slow. My brother is diagnosed, our manager, who was highly involved in everything, and I really credit a lot of our like breaking out of Austin to him. He really was the one that kind of got us touring and on the road and expanding and was able to connect us. He was just charismatic dude that you could not fathom. Made connections. Just a beloved, great, brilliant human. And So he's gets diagnosed with a really sudden and severe case of bipolar 1 with psychotic features. So it's like, there's bipolar 2, which is really quite common. But it's kind of a little, manic episodes and depressive. But the bipolar 1 is generally characterized by um, more extreme highs and really proper the manic episodes occasionally having psychotic features. So just completely, he would, I could tell so many stories, but it was like we were dealing with that in the middle of all this too. So we're trying to make space to still the place. So in that way, it was a really dark and difficult time. We're putting out fires all the time. We'd get a call that he's in Mexico City, or we wouldn't even get a call from him. It was like the credit card company is like, "Hey, did you purchase $1,000 flight to Mexico City?" Like, no. Like, oh shit, and then he's like, yeah, the CIA has put a chip in my brain. I had to get out of the country, and then so somebody's got to go fly down there and bring him back, like these kind of things. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, so it was stressful and just like intense. And so then finally that ended in him, his taking of his own life. And which frankly to all of us, he was very open about it, talked a lot about it. About He always felt like, I feel like I have this terminal illness. And I feel like I'm only, 27, 28 years old, but I've lived a long and thorough life, and I feel very happy about what I've lived. And he was very matter of fact about it. And that was very hard to hear at first, but I was very glad, because it felt like, you just had to trust him, that he knew that and the evidence was there too. In the end, he had tried every medication and was doing electroshock therapy that was just like, nothing was working. It was certainly just getting worse, 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 and worse very quickly. So so he passes the day before we announce Space is Still the Place, the release, which, that was just cool. It was already set in stone, that date. Um, and it was our first time we'd signed with French Kiss Records, so it was like we had a great whole team behind us that was doing great publicity, marketing, and decent budget, and just believed in us, and we got a great team around the band for the first time ever. And then, just like this the most major blow you could imagine. And so we did all this touring, limping along, like that. And then, yeah, Curtis, and still, we don't really understand what happened. He was vegetarian and, doesn't smoke. Like, it didn't make any sense. And out of nowhere, he has this, you know, a heart attack at like 30, I want to say 31 or 32, something very, very young. Um, and I can just guess that it's related to the stress of it all. But still, it's a bit of a mystery. He hasn't had any issues since, thank God, and he seems to be very, healthy and fine. Um, so, that's terrifying. Like, what is going on? Are we, cursed? Like, what is it? And yeah, it's like it felt like on this brink of like really breaking out. And we did that record really helped us. I think while the first one really got our footing in Austin and helped us break out, then Space is Still the Place really, I think, established us as a national and international touring act. And um it always felt like, we were just getting every hit from every angle. And then frankly, we go into the next albums. It was Jude Volume 1 and 2. We decided at that point, like, man, I don't want to go through that again. Like, that was so painful to make this last record, Space Still the Place. It was a great learning experience. I thought we did a great job, as difficult as it was for us to go from novices to, you know, decent recording engineers. Um, but Chris Cody actually ended up mixing that record, and we just loved working with him. He was so cool. He'd worked with Yeah Yeah Yeahs, TV on the Radio, Slow Dive, it's just like so many cool recordings that are just so beautiful. So he was invited us to, was like, I'm down at Sunset Sound Recorders, which is an incredible studio in Los Angeles that, you know, the it's it's Frank Sinatra recorded there, The Doors, Prince, the Rolling Stones, Zeppelin, Van Halen, My Morning Jacket, Wilco, like everybody has recorded there. Incredible, beautiful place. So we had pitched that to the label and they were like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. Like, so we're like, okay, great. The next, so we had locked it in, we set the dates to record, and then the label ends up getting acquired by Sony. They essentially drop everyone but the big acts, and so we're like have these recording dates on, but nobody nobody to put the bill. So we ended up, you know, saying like, you know what, screw it, like let's just do this. Let's just put it on credit cards and figure it out and borrow money from everywhere we can, take out loans, do what we scrapped together and ended up making it happen. And then we put that out and the pandemic hits, we're just trusting like, yeah, well, we'll put a lot, it'll be expensive as fuck. But we did it and it was, I wouldn't take it back. It was a master class, but got like another huge blow that we just sunk all this money that we did not have, trusting things would work out. And then the album, turns out to not be one of our most popular. And the pandemic, we can't really tour on it. It's just like, and then, that leads us into the kind of that version of the band falling apart that, there were four of us and, um, yeah, I don't, I'll tell stories about it all, but, feel free to jump in, ask questions, guide me however you want. But
No, no, no. I do
I
want
feel
to
like
add.
we're finally like, okay, now 10 years later, we're finally like, oh, okay, the turbulence is finally chilled out, and we're like doing a steady ascent that we've been that we left off in 2015 to 2025. It's finally like, all right, I think the skies are looking clear, but nobody's resting that easy.
Yeah. It's funny because you mentioned My Morning Jacket, and I think you know other than My Morning Jacket, I don't know of a band that I can compare you to. You know, honestly, because if I tried to compare anybody else to you, like you guys really have a unique sound like it no one else. But when I say that, do you kind of agree with that, or you
Yeah,
vibe with
totally.
that? Okay,
Especially on our earlier stuff, they were a massive influence around, especially around like Z. That we were listening to that a lot, making our first album. Kurt, in particular, was a massive fan of Jim James. Um, my the first date I took my now wife to was Jim James solo concert. Like we're definitely big fans. Kurt was lucky enough to play on a record of Israel Nash's where he had Kevin Ratterman, My Morning Jacket's often producer.
sure,
He
okay,
produced that, and then they had Patrick Callahan, their drummer, was the drummer on that record. So Kurt was like, "Oh my!" He was just living his best life in that, getting to get all the secrets from him from the idols. So yeah, yeah, definitely huge inspiration for us.
yeah. So Jim James, I saw him open up for, which is again full circle for you guys. He opened up for the Flaming Lips at South by at the Auditorium Shores. And my
Hell yeah.
buddy and I smoked a fat joint. And for the Flaming Lips show, I was a little too high for it because he comes out with this like, it was a musical instrument, but it was a baby.
Oh, yeah, on the Terror after the territory. Yeah, that shit was insane. I can't fathom. I saw it sober. Was like, I don't know what's happening. I can't fathom it.
And then he had that thing wrapped around him that like had all the lights and it went like
Yeah, I
up.
was like sucking the light out of the baby into him or something. Yeah,
Oh my God, dude. Like it was like I was totally not expecting that.
man, Wayne Coyne too, huge inspiration. Like that dude is just. unafraid to be absolutely insane, and that to me is just so cool. I think he is one of the weirdest, coolest,
Yeah.
and the whole band, of course, as well. Like mega inspiration.
Yeah. Definitely, definitely. So why do you think though the Jude albums didn't connect with your audience like the others have?
Um, you know, gosh, I really don't have a great answer. I think part of it could be that we were, like it was our first time being very, because it was Jude was my brother's middle name, so it was really like dedicated to him, and it was sort of like all the songs written in the way, because the space and still the place was written. Um, it was, the songs were all written, but it was like being recorded as he was kind of descending, and it was all done at the time that he passed. So that was kind of the era before, and then Jude were the songs that we wrote after his passing. So I think it is a bit like, and even still, like we didn't really know what we were going for, and we were kind of going for a lot of things at once. One being like this sort of like working through our emotions. So a lot of it was a lot more dark and sad and vulnerable than we had ever been. And also something I think we were a bit uncomfortable doing. So figuring out how to do that in a way that was really genuine was like I think we're still figuring that out in that album. But but then like there's also songs that were really like we ended up splitting it up into one and two, and the idea kind of being Jude one was a little more of like the dealing with the shock of the loss, and Jude two being a little more like accepting it and realizing like, there is no life without death, and death is the beautiful, most important part of the cycle, and trying to embrace it. But still, I think it's, a little, I think we're asking our audience to go with us into like some pretty gnarly territory that's a bit, going in a lot of different places. And yeah, so I think that album asks a lot, that pair of albums. And um but I still love so many of the songs, and a lot of them are staples in our sets. And you know it's I I always wonder, like Chris Cody as a producer was very, we came in, we just had, I think like 15 songs, something like that. And at first he was like, I think we should whittle this into one album. But we felt like, no, we want to just record all this stuff and then make sense of it later. Let's not think about, we were like resisting deciding what it was before recording. And so I do wonder a lot of the times, like, what if we had kind of listened to his guidance a little bit more and let him cook a bit, let him like do like, no, scrap these four songs or whatever, and like we're doing this focus thing. And um, but at the same time, it was what we needed to do. We needed to express a huge array of things, and I think, it touches on that. And for that reason, I think it's a lot more expansive and a lot and maybe less cohesive, but you
Mhm.
know, it was what we needed to say.
So you then release the 11th anniversary of the self-titled in 2021. You add the track Ocean.
Mhm.
Were there any other tracks from those sessions that you could have added, or was Ocean really the only one?
Ocean was the only one that it was slated for the original first album. We had it recorded and everything. It was all done, but in the mixing studio, we just ran out of time. We didn't get to that one mix, and that studio was booked for the next couple of months. And we had tour date. Like it was kind of like, yo, we can finish this album if we leave that one off. And it was a big bummer. We were very like upset, but I realized like we were gonna have to delay the release. We were going to have to, scramble to find a new studio, a new engineer, and everything. And it just felt like, no, the right answer felt like leave it off for now. So that was really exciting for us to finally go back and remix all those songs, and then include that in that, and put it back where we originally intended it to go.
So that was going to be then in its original track listing.
Hmm.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, just at the very last minute, it
Wow.
didn't make it. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's a fantastic song and it does like
thanks.
you definitely feel like it's that time frame. Like, it feels like it's part of those sessions. Not always the songs feel like that, but
Hmm.
and then we get to Emergency Leisure. It's funny because my girlfriend, of all of the bands, we've been together now 7 years, and she was, into top 40 and like country before she met me. And so the two bands, and I am completely being honest with you, the two bands that I think the most that I like that she has gravitated toward or like really connected with is Radiohead and you guys.
Wow.
Like she absolutely loves you guys, and this album like is on repeat for her. So
Amazing.
what I know that you had some ideas going in for this album, but like from when you started to the finished product, like talk about that like, process.
Yeah. So that really takes kind of back to where the story sort of is left off. So it's 2019. We're touring on Jude 1. We've come on, we're in this like financially bad situation. Pressure's on us to like for it to go off. It doesn't go off in a way that we're hoping. The tour was huge, like 63 dates or something. Um, and I think everyone is just kind of coming apart a little bit. The individuals, we were just overstretched. It was very one of those moments. It got very existential. Like, does this band have a future? Can we survive this? Can we come out of this? This tour is good, but it's not like a game changing situation. It's not like we're like I remember hearing about how the Lumineers there. I remember meeting with their agent, and he had a whole tour booked halfway through their song "Hey Ho." Ho Hey breaks up, blows up, and they have to rebook in the middle of the tour. They're having to like tomorrow's show has to move. Nothing like that was going on. It was good, but not like that. Um, so yeah, and we start. Everyone's going through really tough personal struggles. I think just the fact that we're also playing these songs every night that are really a bit gut wrenching for us to perform, and we're still a bit, um, yeah, just raw and kind of interpersonally, we're drinking more. It's just more chaotic. It's starting to get a little dark, honestly. Um, but in the middle of all of that, we played this show in Montreal on a Tuesday night at a club called Let's Go Grief, which is French for like the beanpole, the tall, skinny man. Um, and small club, and it was fine show, 75 people or something out there. It was good and but not totally remarkable. And but as soon as we finished, the second we were done, the DJ puts on this music that's like this kind of cool talking heads, like sexy, sultry talking heads, but it's in French and it's like really danceable and me like not one person left. It just instantly broke into this dance party. So like we get off stage, we like are drawn into it. We're all dancing. We end up just dancing, I don't know, till like 3 in the morning in this place, just like losing our minds, having a great time. We bring like half the club back to where we're staying in the hot tub, just like all night just like this release that we really needed. And it was funny because the next day we'd all individually been shazamming a lot of the music, and most all of it was this one local band there called Chose Sauvage. It's French for wild things, and just like the coolest, Montreal Quebecois French new disco rock pop like Um, so I in particular became extremely obsessed with that
Sure.
sort of sound, and it was something that I think we had all since the very beginning been sort of doing our version of it, but hearing this like I don't know, and having this reaction to it, and this moment in time where it was just like we didn't care about all these stresses and all these things and all these difficulties, and it was just like we came together and just had this beautiful, unforgettable night. Um, so I started really thinking like what if an album that we have this album that's just the purpose is to recreate this one night? and to relive that and to bring that experience to others to share it. And originally, very originally, I conceived it as a first solo album. I've since started this side project called Starflake, which is kind of like a nickname that it's my white when I go out dancing, sometimes I get started, I can't stop. And so that's what my bandmates and some close friends will call me. So Starflake is when I, yeah, get when I'm on one. So I was thinking like, okay, maybe this could be the concept for the first Starflake record, but end of the tour, Joe, our drummer, we kind of, mutually part ways with him. Then pandemic hits immediately after that. Shredward, our longtime synth and guitar guru, he is just, he's very and understandably very hesitant about getting back together out of the pandemic when it first, like you're having your small bubbles, me and Curtis started meeting up, but he, didn't want to. So luckily we met Zach Catanzaro, who was a drummer for Walker Lukens. He was the first person that we wanted to jam with. So suddenly we're like essentially a three piece and and we're just, you know, feeling freed of it all. And so I said, like, man, like, no, this is who needs, like, we need to make this record. We need to do this thing. Like, it's the Bright Light Social Hour story. The Bright Light Social Hour needs to tell this. And so the three of us started writing what became Emergency Leisure. Um, but there were no shows going on, so we weren't performing live at all. We're just getting together. We're like just us and our families, not interacting with anybody else in the world, really. And we're just meeting up all the time, and we're getting some government assistance, and it's like, okay, we can go in the studio a few times a week, like most of the week, and just jam and write. And so we started reinventing ourselves, but really kind of going for this sort of future disco kind of feel yourself sultry dance vibe. Um, and so we finally start to get a couple of show offers, and we brought Mia Carruthers in on keys. And so I'd say we had the album about half recorded. She comes in, just blows us away, and is just incredible at arranging vocal harmonies, and an insane singer, also a great engineer. So she's like is suddenly this like powerhouse that's a huge bringing this really new aspect to the band that we hadn't ever really had. And then right around that time is when we did that LCD Sound System show. We met Alfredo. We were like, this is the guy we want on this. And um, so say about half of the record was written just as a three piece, and then half of it was with, and then yeah, Mia comes in. We write the other half of the songs, and Alfredo's comes in kind of a bit towards the end, and we ended up adding him. Zach actually played about half the percussion on the record is played by Zach, and then Alfredo came in and did about the other half of the songs. So, we had this idea for like we want to make this sort of dance band, and I think that was why percussion was so important. Um, but yeah, it was like telling this story of like, let's be honest about this existential crisis that we nearly crashed and burned, and so that record, for that reason, we wanted it to be this celebration, but it's like celebration in a moment of like pure joy when the world around you is sort of crumbling. So that record has this dark undertone, and it has, to me, it's something that we went for, and I feel like we articulated pretty nicely that, there's celebration and darkness. And another theme that honestly has been since day one, Shanty is all about like, hey, the economy's crashing, that great recession, and but we're down here in Austin just like going to Barton Springs and partying and trying to make the most of it, acknowledging that it's around us, but also saying, we're still going to celebrate, and that's our way of protesting and getting through it.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned Shanny because I really feel like even now, like, we're talking 15 years after that album came out, that song in particular, the first song that you hear off that album, is a real representation of you as a band, even today. Like if you listen to that song today, the sections of that song, like you incorporate still to this day, and I think that's a real testament. And when you said that half of the album was recorded by the three of you and half of it was with Mia and the other band,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that's a testament as well. Like because you can't tell the difference. Like I there's no way that I could tell you the five songs that you guys did.
I'm not even sure I remember also. Like I'd have to think about. Curtis could tell you his memory is incredible for that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was. But I will say that it captured. I think it captured a band in transition in a really cool way that I think is really unique and stuff that we're working on now, coming up. I'm very excited about, and it does feel like Emergency Leisure was the transition into this new band, and this upcoming stuff is like the new band knows what it is.
Mm. So talk about, yeah, what Mia, I mean, you kind of did touch base on, but like what she really has meant to this band. And really just as a female too, like how that kind of dynamic changes.
Yeah, it was, I think a lot about I know there was a period where Stevie Nicks was really interested in joining Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and he was like, "No, we can't. It's this can there can only be men in this band." Like he was very,
Sure.
and it's funny. It's like you're like, "Well, that's kind of misogynist," but it's like I don't know. Like it is really hard to imagine Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers with Stevie Nicks or like this
Yeah.
powerful female thing, and I think that honestly that was a it was a bit of something for us to wrap our heads around because I think, we're all very, I would say, sensitive, high feminine energy men, but embracing masculinity from that standpoint, I think is quite interesting. It's something I think that we've always done. It's been like, you know, uh, I mean, we have always liked to just play with our shirts off and just, high energy, insane guitar solos, and we're fucking going for it. Um, so it was like, I don't even know how that would work. Like, how could it? But I was skeptical. And first, rehearsals, she just was like, okay, she's just really good. She just put us all at ease. And I will say probably, we're like on the whole more, especially Curtis and I are definitely on the whole like definitely more feminine leading men, and she's probably a more masculine energy women. So we definitely click well. We communicate really well. She has like another version of her perspective that I think we already have, and that there's like I think leaning into that androgyny is really cool, but also realizing like she's articulating something that we can't, like just her voice, the way that it can um just like cut straight to the heart in a way that I don't know, for whatever reason it's difficult for a man's voice to do that. I think a lot of that's her just incredible skill as well. But um, yeah, and she gets on like one of us. It's just like hilarious. Just fit in instantly, just right away, and you know she does a great job of like I'll overthink things. Will be like, I mean, like, man, these lyrics, they're cool and they're most of the way to saying this thing, but I think they could be more clever. Or, let's rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. And she's like, no, fuck them, fuck the exact words. It's like, it doesn't have, like, it sounds good. The mouth feel, like, she's like, it feels good. Just step away from get out of your head. Does it sound good? Does it feel right? Like, yes. Okay. Then its meaning will come. Like, its meaning is not don't undermine it by just being focused on a superficial version of meaning. Like meaning is much more deep and you feel it and when these words when you sing them, if they feel right, that's, sure it's ideal if they're real clever as well, but let's not like make perfect the enemy of good and then a lot of the times I realize after I take some space like holy shit, then I can't imagine lyrics being any different. And so yeah, she helps a lot with lyrics, those vocals. She's just really like she hears the harmonies right as soon as one of us starts to sing, she's like, okay, now Kurt, you're gonna put this note on, I'm gonna add this note, and then there's gonna be a high harmony on top. And incredible arranger. um and yeah, now I can't fathom the band without her.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, hopefully it is a long lasting relationship. So, I, now that you guys have 5 albums, I mean, from a collection of songs, like putting together a set list, is that something you guys put a lot of time into or not so much?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because like we've been different places about it where like I'm a big fan of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, and I heard them say in an interview once that they keep this massive, and they've got 28 albums or whatever. That's on a whole nother level. They keep a spreadsheet of every song they play in every city. So when they go to a city, the rule is they can't play a song that has ever been played in that city. So, I'm like, that's cool, but then again, the other argument is, but the more you get these like particular sequences of songs, the more you get this like you can you can find more variation, the more comfortable, the more rehearsed something is. And so it's like we've like lately we've been doing like large swaths of Space Still the Place all in a row, um, gearing up for this Endless Light festival where we're going to play the entirety of that album. And in doing that, we've actually like stretched it out. And like I at first was pretty against it. I was like, I don't want us to play the same thing. There even like a section of 6 songs in a row that's the same every night. But then you realize actually every night that evolves a lot, and there's incredible freedom between the lines where what's coming next and you can play with it more. And hey, I'm gonna just go into this weird spoken word thing that I'm feeling right here because that's and then that evolves into a whole thing that we start, that we do differently every night. And so, um of we do change it up night to night, but we also have like chunks that we know or particular songs that were like, okay, we'll favor them. They'll be in most sets, not all, but and then others that we just totally swap out every night that are completely different. So it's a mix of, some, I'd say like half staples, half being completely switched out.
Okay. So between you and Curtis, are you guys music first and then lyrics, or are you lyrics first and then music typically with your songwriting?
Both, but usually music first.
Music
We're
first.
definitely, yeah, he and I like we have become very into lyrics, and I particularly have been very into poetry, and I try to write a lot that's to stand alone. Um, for me, an ideal set of lyrics is a standalone, like it can hold its own as a poem taken completely out of context. But again, like I'm just laughing as I'm thinking about I was in the studio just recently and my 5-year-old daughter came in, and I had the music kind of there of this demo, the drum machine idea with bass and some chords and a little guitar part, but no vocals. And so I look at her and I was like, man, I don't have any ideas of what the vocals should do. I don't have any melodies or words or ideas. And I just was like, what do you think the vocals should do? What do you think it should be about? And she shot me this look like I was stupid. It was just like, don't don't worry about it. Just make it fit the song and make it sound good. It was just like, and it would to me it was this big like, oh my God, you're so wise. Like, yeah, you know, sh- and again, I love clever lyrics or something that makes me giggle or like, wow, that's cool what he did there with the words or the way that rhymes or the way like, or that's just something you don't hear people say. That's cool, but like ultimately does it serve the are the vocals another instrument that fits like on the and we think of ourselves as a team like our one of our huge idols as a band is the San Antonio Spurs, just that they're a team that's not you know one star and this everyone else is supporting. It's like we're always passing the ball, so we think of the lyrics and the vocals as like another instrument that is playing in the group as opposed to like that's up here and the band is underneath supporting.
Mhm.
So I would say they're equal. So we do occasionally like I'll have a poem that I'll kind of like sometimes I'll just start reading it and realize like, okay, it's got a sort of a tempo, and then I'll start a little demo, and then I'll take that to the band, and even if it evolves a lot lyrically from where it started, it did come from words. We will start every different entry point. We kind of write all different ways, but usually the music comes first.
Yeah. So you currently have a record label then, or what is your situation as a band then from a professional standpoint?
We are a label. Yeah, we are. We
That's right.
are. Yeah, no, I mean, Escondido Sound Recordings is what we call it, the name named after our studio, and we do release music for a few other artists. It's mostly at this point mostly built around Bright Light, kind of just like everything. It's like we build it around Bright Light Social Hour, and then we pull in like the outside projects. So like Starflakes, a couple of singles that I've released are on Escondido Sound, and upcoming music from that will be as well. And um, Curtis and Mia have Cosmic Campfire Band, their side project that will come out on that label. We just did a recent single for Megafauna on our label as well. So yeah, at this
Pro-
time, we're independent.
Pros and cons then of having your own label compared to, being under a label.
A lot more work for the musicians, but the huge pro is that we keep from dollar one. We All that money goes back into our business. It's not, you know, usually the way a label deal works is that you've got, whatever they invest, they will take 100% of all income until they recoup that. And then after that, you're splitting a percentage, usually like something around 50-50. So it can be, even if you have an album that does really well, if the label put a good bit of money into it, it's going to be a long time until you see a dime. And then even after that long time, you're still getting less. So maybe the reach isn't as, we don't have as many hands on deck. We don't have as big of a team. We don't have, high end, a publicist, publicists in territories around the world. But I think we do a pretty good job getting our work. And, it's these days, the tools are so much more democratic. They're available to artists. So I think we can do with smaller budget and smaller team, we can get a lot closer to what a large label with a large budget is doing than anyone ever could before. So I like it that way, and having just that total control, and Mia's a brilliant. She has a background in marketing, and works like did worked at this audio branding company, and so Kelsey as well. So kind of we'll have like Kelsey, Mia, and I will have these the strategy meetings, and like what's the plan, what's the rollout look like, and um it's tough. I wish, certainly, I like doing it. I don't love it. I much prefer the musical. If I could just be work focus on music and film, music and music film in particular, like I would be very happy. But finding there's a great Andy Warhol quote that's like something to the effect of, the business of art is where the real creativity lies. If you can figure out how to make it work, how to make it make some money, like don't think of it as like an annoyance. Think of it as the greatest creative challenge of the whole situation.
Yeah. Kind of like the studio, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Life
Oh yeah.
lessons from a Seth Rogen TV show
Yeah. So good. So good.
that we have to pay a monthly fee for.
Yeah.
Gotta love capitalism, right?
Oh man. Yeah, we're withstanding it daily in increasingly creative ways.
Yeah. So, my last question for you. So, in this world that we live in currently, in this digital world of Spotify and Tidal and all these streaming services, where, labels are telling these bands and artists to just release singles, like the album is dead. What do you say to that? And, like, has that changed your guys' philosophy at all?
The album is not dead. Albums are what distinguish, I think, a real vision from something else. I think albums are still they are like I don't think factually they are still listened to um, hugely. Of course, people your more listeners are going for singles as well, and a lot of the algorithms favor more releases. So I think the best bands, the best artists are embracing both. I think to give regular release. So, in the old days, you'd have one single that precedes the album and then a couple, maybe one or two afterwards, if they're so lucky. Nowadays, it's more like, release 3 to 5 singles and then the album. And that's cool. Like, we're happy to play that game. I think that's actually ideal because you get all these opportunities to hit people. I think you each of you get more songs that end up having their day in the sun, and you're able to drip it out, but not to the point that it kills the excitement of when the album comes out. Oh, there's this whole cohesive thing. There's a big whole that we're building to. There are of course a lot of very successful acts who only release singles year after year, and um, but as a fan, that's not, that's why I love King Gizzard. It's like they don't care. They release whole albums like other people release singles. It's amazing that they're able to do that on the level that they do, and it's as a fan, it's so exciting. Like, oh my God, it's not just 3 minutes that I'm like, okay, like it's hard not to be disappointed by just 3 minutes of music. Like that's a tall order to ask somebody to blow your ass off in 3 or 4 minutes. Like it happens sometimes, sure, um, but to have it as a piece that tells a story or like a chapter in the novel or a episode in the series in the season, um, I think we just love storytelling so much that an album can just tell so much of a bigger whole of a story than um, kind of singles that live in their own universes can. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think both together work well, and I do appreciate the modern. What I would recommend is like, yeah, do your singles, release a lot of singles, and release albums, and mix it all up, and put it all out, and that I think for the listener and for the artist is most exciting.
yeah, and I think as smartphones, or since smartphones have come out and as our attention spans have, decreased, I think the one medium that I think can withstand all of that is the album. Do you
Oh
agree?
yeah, 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 yeah. There's never gonna be, I don't know, just even you're listening to it on your phone or whatever, but like getting on an airplane and having an album downloaded on Spotify or Tidal or whatever, and just being able to like, zone out, get into this, have this whole journey, having being able to get in the on a road trip and being like, yo, check this album out,
Mhm.
put the thing on from front to back as opposed to a playlist which is skipping all over the place. Like that's just, I think it's the same reason why you know, sure TV is having its day right now and like, shows the seasons, but film I don't think is ever, like feature films are never going to not still be able to not still have the possibility of being mind-blowing and absolutely just an experience that can build you up, break you down, take you a million places, and then, vinyl proves that. It's still, very it's just people want it. People want that the drug, the experience, the a way to feel different than you feel, or a way to feel deeper what you feel. And songs do it, but I think albums really just do it in a bigger way. And they're more amazing. I mean, it's a lot to make a whole album of music and to write it and to finish it, to record it, to release it. It's so much work that goes into it that, you know, it's usually gonna have some aspect of, you know, usually there's a reason that artist went through all that pain to tell that story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put
Mhm.
it. So so we got the second leg of the tour that starts in a couple weeks, and that goes what through the end of June?
And picks back up late June and goes through like mid-July.
Okay, perfect. And then anything then for the rest of the year that you can let us know?
Yeah, we're looking at well, Endless Light, this is gonna be is the next show, but that's like, man, I would say if you're gonna travel somewhere like for a show of Bright Light Social Hour, this would be the one. It's like our festival that we're putting on. It's taking place on the summer solstice, June 21st at Mohawk Austin, sort of a mini festival. Where our hope is to make it a yearly thing. This year, we're doing it as a 10-year anniversary of Space Still to Play. So we're going to play that album in full. We've got this insane band. If you're not familiar, you've got to check them out. Grandmaster. They're like a 10 plus piece band. Their whole thing is they're a cult that follows the Grandmaster, who occasionally shows up and rips insane solos. It's wild. It's incredible. Megafauna, dear friends of ours that rip. Bruce, which is the new project of Carrie from Calliope Musicals. Super
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
UV, LLUVI, LLUVII, UV. Incredible, like kind of indie psychedelic cumbia band. Anyway, that one's gonna be pulling out all the stops. A great, our big kind of show of the year. Um, then yeah, July will be left touring mostly Texas, Oklahoma, and like New England, Northeast, doing Madison. And then fall, we haven't announced yet, but we're looking at doing some more Texas states as well as some stuff in the Southeast, doing looking like probably stuff around the Carolinas. Atlanta will probably hit. So I don't think we'll make it back up to Philly at that time. But yeah, we're trying to wrap up, trying to give ourselves time to work on this album that we're getting pretty close on,
Okay.
getting pretty yeah, getting close to wrapping up.
Do we have an idea of how many tracks or like what ideally you'd like to have for this album?
Um, well, we're again at this period where we've got what we were thinking of this as being a really long, like we are like, let's go full 90s, like 15 tracks, 60-minute album, like, fill up the whole CD, double vinyl. But then more recently, we're like, no, I think two different things are emerging here. So I don't know. I don't want to say because it's like
Sure.
what last week I would have told you, oh, it's going to be a huge thing. Now we're thinking like, no, I think we have like one shorter, much more focused album that I think is going to come out of that, and then we'll have like the chunk left over as the start of what's the following album. So, still figuring out exactly how that looks, and it's kind of like right now it's like changing daily. So, but we're just like going through, finishing up the songs, and just like we'll make sense of it after a bit. So, um, yeah, so unfortunately, at this point, I can't say exactly when it will be, how long, what it is, but it's coming out to be what definitely the stuff that we're most excited about that we've been a part of. So we're yeah, been bringing a couple of the songs out live on the road, and we'll continue to
Okay.
try some of these new ones out on the upcoming tour dates.
Yeah, I think you did one new song for at the Johnny Brenda show, correct? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah. Cool. Well, dude, I so much appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure.
Yeah. We got the little girl in bed. We're good to go.
Yes. No, I appreciate you. Dog, man,
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you like diving deep and coming with thoughtful questions and just specifics. That's just really exciting for us. You would not believe how many boilerplate things we do. So it really means the world that you're like ahead and come to the shows and know the music, and yeah, it's been a blast.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands and artists that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dog. You've been great. This is the Music Lab Podcast.